extremely blessed and honored to be gifted with the time of Emin today. He's the founder of Avalanche, which is next generation consensus algorithm. They made big waves, obviously, recently, also since AVAX is moving up on the rankings. But yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Emin, how is everything going on your side?
Incredibly well. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. And man, when I first heard about you and started to read about you, which was probably around roughly a year ago, I was so impressed that you have a crazy long track record in cryptocurrencies, consensus algorithms, proof of stake, proof of work. So maybe we can start off with, you know, your kind of like crypto journey that goes way back to way before when Bitcoin was even created. I think in 2002, you had a kind of like virtual currency that was built on proof of work. So you were even ahead of the time of Satoshi himself. So yeah, can you share a little bit of your kind of like first kind of like researches in the DLT space, distributed ledger technology, and what got you hooked in the first place to even spend time on that?
Sure. My first effort in this space goes back to 2002, like you mentioned, to a system called Karma. And back in 2002, one of the big things was the peer-to-peer space was just coming up. I was a young assistant professor at Cornell, and I was fascinated by these distributed systems that have a life of their own. You write some software, you build something, and it sort of maintains its service level, even though some of the components are flaky, faulty, even though there's no big company backing it, you know, you can do something. And that was so amazing to me. And one of the main things at the time that people wanted to do was share files. And as you might remember, like those of you who've been around at that time, you'll remember that it was actually kind of difficult to download files because you'd go to a file and, you know, if you had like mainstream interests, no problem. But if you had somewhat niche interests, you know, the music you wanted or whatever would be a file that you know, very few people have. And it wasn't so easy to get people to contribute that file to the network. People would just download and disconnect. They would just take and not give. That's a very common problem in every human endeavor, right? That's selfishness, basic human greed. So at the time, there was a very good idea that tried to address this called BitTorrent. It's at its core, BitTorrent does barter. It says, look, you give me a block of the file if in exchange for me giving you a block of the file. And that's not actually, I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's not that great because in the beginning you've got nothing. You have to beg for the first block, then start trading it, then you go somewhere. So it's tough to get started sometimes. So I thought, hey, look, I can do better than this. Instead of barter, I'll introduce some magic internet money without a centralized bank. You get some money created when you join the system. If you only take, you run out of money, and at some point you have to give to make money back so you can stay in the system. And so that was the genesis of the Karma system. It's very well cited academically, but it did not become successful like Bitcoin did. There are a couple of reasons for this, but one of the main ones was I didn't push it to be you know, a replacement for the dollar. And in fact, I didn't really pursue the idea because my mentors came to me and said, look, this is a great idea, but we are dealing with the aftermath of 9/11. You'll never get funding for this. Nobody will let you do this. People are worried about terrorist financing. And so magic internet money goes counter to everything people want to do right now. So give this idea a rest. So I stepped away from that idea. I did other things. I did peer-to-peer reputation. I did a whole bunch of other things in the peer-to-peer space. And then, of course, when Satoshi came up with his idea, he also had one big major improvement on top of Karma. So he did use proof of work minting like I did, but he also did something else to fold the consensus protocol into proof of work. That was absolutely brilliant. And then his timing was great. He came after the 2008 crash. And then the rest is history. I took an interest back in the space. I started looking into security of Bitcoin. I found this thing called selfish mining with ITIL that allows you to mine more coin than you should. That's kind of a little cute trick. What else did we do? I worked on characterizing decentralization. I worked on scalability of blockchains. I worked on securing funds at rest. I worked on on Bitcoin NG, a faster protocol, again, based on proof of work. And then I worked on T-Chain, these layer 2 protocols, super high speed layer 2 protocols. And most recently, I've been working on the Avalanche protocol, which I think is the crowning achievement of my career. It also happens to be one of the biggest breakthroughs in the distributed system space.
Yeah, I find that journey very fascinating. I think a lot of people that are, especially that are new to crypto and to this whole industry, they don't really know that many of these coins, of course, there's a lot of copycats and, you know, copy paste things, but many of them actually have a long track record of kind of like innovation, of testing and trials and errors and all these kind of things, right? Like you had even Bitcoin itself. I mean, 2008 was just where the double spending was resolved in those kind of things, right? But let me get a little bit back to 2002. Back then, I mean, you must have been one of the like only people in the world probably to even talk about these things and have these ideas and also execute on them. So were you kind of like, were you part of this whole cypherpunk movement? Were you involved in all that, or were you just kind of like on your own and kind of like just researching for yourself?
So I was involved in the cyberpunk movement, but cyberpunks are practitioners. They're typically self-taught people. And I was on the academic side of this. So, you know, I've been on the cypherpunks list for a very long time. And, you know, I've been a hacker for a very long time. And, you know, it's like there's a tradition. There's a cultural tradition. It's hard to characterize what constitutes members of that tradition, but you know your type, you know your tribe when you see them. And I will proudly proclaim that I was part of that tribe back in the 90s, all the way through the 90s, and of course in the early noughts. And but there were people before me, you know, working on decentralized currencies as well. And there are people on the techie side trying to do this. There are people you know, on the humanities side. You know, back where I lived in Ithaca, there was, for example, Ithaca Hours, one of the first community currencies. This is not that many people know about it, but it is the first community currency as far as anyone can trace it back. So in Ithaca, people were trading these little pieces of paper. And you know, if you fix my car, I give you an Ithaca hour. That means you're entitled to an hour of my time, you know, fixing your computer, and then et cetera, et cetera. So that's another kind of economy creation. So there is a rich cultural context to everything that came before us. And the world did not start with Bitcoin. Satoshi is brilliant. He did have a big breakthrough, but he also stood on top of a lot of other advances that came before him. And the rest is history, though. He executed really well on it.
Do you have any guess who Satoshi is or was?
I have some guesses, but I think it's not me, and he's dead. So I think what we should do is we should let people die when they want to. So if somebody does not want the media attention, somebody does not want to be found out, then you should just let it be. It doesn't matter who he is. Just judge them by their work. You know, it doesn't matter who's behind Avalanche. It doesn't matter who's behind Bitcoin. These things rise and fall on their merits. So let's look at the protocol. Let's talk about where it is today, and let's not idolize any people. I think he and the team or whatever, you know, he, she, them, it, whatever the pronoun might be for Satoshi, you know, they're gone now. And let's see what happens to the system. And let's talk about where the system is today. It's so different from when he left. Yeah. So very different.
Yeah, I think it's also one of the beautiful kind of like origin stories of Bitcoin itself, that the founders kind of like not public and not known. And I think, yeah, like I say, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the whole point about decentralized networks is also that everything underneath is also decentralized and kind of like not dependent on a single person, right? But throughout the years, then at what point, because obviously back then we only had kind of like proof of work, which requires computational power to kind of like verify transactions. And also I think today, a lot of like Bitcoin only people, they would say that's the only thing that actually gives value to the network, being backed by, you know, by energy, which is something that, you know, electricity that costs money, right, in the real world. So at what point did you say, hey, maybe there's something better that we could explore, you know, proof of stake? And how did you start what were the first steps here, the first approaches from your side?
Great question. So there are a lot of myths and incorrect thought patterns that revolve around proof of work. And so as soon as I heard about proof of work, first I thought, hey, brilliant idea. It's an idea I have used also in the past before. Then I thought, hey, this is, as soon as I heard it, I knew that it was incredibly wasteful. But at the same time, I also thought it is the best we've got. It was the best we had at the time. It is a huge step up from everything that came before it. We did not know before Bitcoin how to build open internet scale, financially valuable systems. That word open is very crucial there. Yeah, I know how to build a financial system. I can build it out of my laptop, right? You have a database that holds that keeps track of who's got how many tokens. That's not hard. What's hard is making it open and accessible. And Bitcoin did that. What's hard is making it decentralized. Bitcoin did that. And but also what's happened with Bitcoin is it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And as it got more and more industrialized, it got more centralized. There aren't that many independent entities that contribute to the Bitcoin blockchain right now. Everybody creates a cartel. They have a nice name for it. They call it a mining pool, but it's a cartel of miners. And there are only a handful of these. In fact, 3 or 4 of them can rewrite the chain. So it's not that decentralized at the end of the day. Bitcoin has great brand recognition. It has great liquidity. So as a financial asset, it's in a strong position. But technically, from a technologist point of view, it is not that decentralized. It's worse than many coins that Bitcoiners would call shit coins. 3 or 4 people can collude and rewrite what happened in the last 6 blocks, steal billions from any centralized exchange. So that's a real problem for Bitcoin, and it's it's got other issues as well. Its scale is lacking. It can't. Well, I mean, I can pick fault. I can find and point out faults in just about anything. The issue with Bitcoin to me isn't really so much that it's slow. It's not so much that it consumes or incentivizes fossil fuel usage. It's not that it's melting the poles. To me, the problem with Bitcoin is its vision is this narrow. And so what is that vision? Replace dollar, replace gold, replace stores of value. I think that's a fine vision. It's great. Bitcoin should do that. And how does Bitcoin try to do this? It tries to do this by being a hard capped asset. Now, what are we trying to do in Avalanche? We're trying to do something totally different. There is much more to the world than battling it out with the dollars and the golds of the world. So in Avalanche, we're trying to digitize all assets. That's our goal. That's so different. I'm not trying to push my coin. I don't really care if you use my coin or not. What I really want to see deep down, I want to see all of that $72 trillion worth of value traded on a blockchain. That's what I want. And like the 1 trillion game of Bitcoin, it's just a drop in the bucket. That's small potatoes. That's that's a small thing. Our vision is broader. And now to do that, it's not this, we do have in Avalanche, we have the same hard cap, right? So we have a similar hard cap to Bitcoin. So there will only be so many AVAXs. So if you like that, okay, well, welcome. We've got that too. We stole a bunch of great ideas from Bitcoin. Like I was, when we were designing Avalanche, I was pretty, brazen. When I see a good idea, I will take it. And Bitcoin had a bunch of good ideas, as I mentioned. So we do a lot of the same things that Bitcoin does, but we do far more. And this is true also for Ethereum. We do a lot of the things that Ethereum does, but we do far more. And that's what you need to be to go after this vision of digitizing all of the world's assets.
So how do you, in that context, how do you view the whole kind of like crypto industry as we move forward? Because personally, I'm more of a kind of like multi-chain maximalist. I think there's going to be tens of thousands, maybe hundreds or even millions of blockchains that are either very close to each other or either completely different in their architecture. But what I'm very excited about is this aspect of interoperability, that you can connect all these chains and then have seamless transactions. And then in the end of the day, users can just choose which chain they want to use, where is more benefits for them, and those kind of things. So how do you view the crypto space evolving? Do you have a similar vision, or what is your take on that?
Yeah, no, I very much have a multi-chain vision. I've always had a multi-chain vision. And it's very clear to me that anybody who's a maximalist thinks that one chain will win above all else is going to completely miss the boat. They're going to just miss the boat. It's just so limited a worldview. It belies a huge lack of imagination. So, in fact, if you look who these people are, they typically tend to be the maxis, whether they're Bitcoin maxis or Ethereum maxis, tend to be really the left-hand side of the curve. You know, the people who are just stuck with one thing. This is what I learned. It was so hard to learn, and I don't want to learn anything else. And so I will attack everything. You know, like the Vogons in the Restaurant at the End of the Universe. When they discover that the sky has has millions of stars in it, they decide to get rid of every single star, because for the longest time they thought the sky had nothing in it. And so now that there are other competing stars, they just can't handle that fact. So I personally think we're going to have many different chains for lots and lots of use cases. I don't think any chain is going to die. Bitcoin is here to stay. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be, whatever size it is, plus a bit more, bit less, whatever it does, over time, whatever the markets do. I cannot guess what that's going to be. But as I said, there's a much bigger game, and this is a game of absorbing that growth. If your chain is scalability limited, you can't absorb that growth. Where's it going to go? So the winners in this game are always, in the long term, going to be those people who have the technological edge. And the tech edge will allow you to take that value, store it, and represent it on your chain, and take it to the next level, give people the ability to build next generation financial instruments on top of it. That's what Avalanche is all about. And you know what, by the way, like when I say this, and when someone hears it, they probably are going to think that's so freaking obvious.
Yeah.
It wasn't obvious 2 years ago. I was saying the same thing 5 years ago. Nobody was listening. I was a lone voice. All the maxis attack you day and night when you say anything like this. So my vision has been unwavering on this topic, and I'm proud of 30,000 tweets, and I've been I've been pretty dead on about the multi-chain universe, about the multi-chain future. There'll be many, many different chains. Ethereum, of course, is hopefully going to be a big winner. I love Ethereum. I hope Bitcoin does well at what it wants to do, but we're going after a very different slice of the pie, and we're trying to make that pie much bigger.
I had Sunny Agarwal, who is the co-founder at Osmosis, a couple of weeks ago on my channel, and he has this approach to just reclaim the term maximalism. So instead of kind of like linking maximalism directly with these ignorant, toxic people, rather say, hey, we're all Bitcoin maximalists because we want to maximize the value of Bitcoin by offloading it to something like Avalanche, something like Ethereum, right? Something like Cosmos, where you have also interoperability or privacy in some other chains, right? I think that's something that I personally also want to make my mission, to just say, hey, I'm a Bitcoin maxi, but I want to maximize Bitcoin because I love it in what it does and what it is, right? But now let's talk a little bit more about Avalanche. You said it was kind of like the peak where it all led to over the past decades of your work and research. So what was this kind of like breaking point? There must have been some kind of event where you're like, man, this is it. I figured it out. Let's turn this now into a serious project. What was that kind of like unique innovation that you found out and that you said, this is it?
Let's see, there were two pieces to this. There was an initial phase where we came up with the ideas that are behind the Avalanche protocol. So essentially me and a couple of graduate students at Cornell University had been thinking about lightweight consensus protocols. And there are many consensus protocols. It's not just, some people think it's proof of work versus proof of stake. It's not. Proof of stake is not even a consensus protocol. It's a Sybil control mechanism. So we were thinking about these protocols, the algorithms that govern who sends a message to whom and how you achieve consensus. And so there were only two classes. There is the classical protocols, and then there is proof of work protocols. And then we had this glimpse into a potential way that these things could work, not in the classical fashion, not by having every validator talk to or hear from every other validator, but by this probabilistic repeated sampling idea. And as soon as we had that idea, there are these aha moments. When I teach things, when I used to teach and I used to give my operating systems course, you describe something, you tell people, look, it appears as if your screen has thousands or whatever of many different applications, even though your chip is executing one instruction at a time. Here is how that works. And I would watch the students' faces. They brighten up. They're like, whoa, that's how that works. It's the processor does something special to make it appear as if they're all concurrent. So this is a similar moment for me. I remember my face brightening up thinking, this is a great mechanism. It's different from everything, fundamentally different, potentially much more efficient. And it seems like it could work. Now, the problem, of course, is, there's one thing to have an idea, a rough gut feeling. It's another thing to sort of vet that feeling, and it's another thing to prove it. So I would never build something without a proof in my hand that it works as expected, or it will work as expected. So getting that proof took us many, many years on top of or after the initial idea. And it wasn't our work. We were contacted by another team that had been working on and exploring similar ideas. So that's a creation story very similar to Satoshi. An anonymous team contributed the proofs behind Avalanche. And those proofs are what are in the Avalanche white paper. They show that this mechanism of repeated subsampled voting creates what we call a metastable situation that resolves itself very quickly, with the network making a decision very, very fast. Now, by fast, I mean, transactions in Avalanche are less than a second. So it's one of the fastest networks out there, at the same time as one of the most decentralized networks. You can be fast by centralizing, right? That's not hard. But it's decentralized, super freaking fast, and it's 3 times as fast as Visa. So that's a pretty good situation to be in. And I never thought I would see the day, let alone be one of the architects of such a system. So I'm really proud of what we've built in Avalanche. To any thinking person, to any techie, this is easily the biggest advance in distributed systems.
Yeah, and I heard you also speak about this very passionately about this revolution. I think you said also this is the biggest revolution since Bitcoin itself.
Absolutely, it is.
I think there's, like I said earlier, man, there's so much more to kind of like crypto, DLTs, distributed systems than just storing money and not moving it, right? I mean, there's so many cool things. Now we see an explosion in DeFi. We see an explosion in NFTs. Absolutely. Like you have to accommodate all these things. And Ethereum is obviously kind of like a little bit out of the race now. At least it's very, very, very exclusive to just a bunch of people that can afford even to pay their transactions at this point. It's
right. So hang on, let me barge in on that front. Ethereum is for rich people and bots. So at this point, the bots are there with really large pockets. They pay a premium to jump in ahead of other people's orders. They price regular people like you and me out. So it's a network for bots. And I love Ethereum. I love the community, but you don't see anybody from developing countries using Ethereum. They can't afford it. It's just for the rich. And so we came up with Avalanche partly to address that. And our DeFi community is qualitatively different from Ethereum's. We're really taking this financial revolution to the masses because we make it affordable.
Yeah, and you can also see that in the numbers. I mean, Jay, which I'm also following, Jay KS17 on Twitter. He was also recently on the show, the VP of marketing at Avalanche, working with you. He's posting always these kind of like crazy numbers, how they're exploding in terms of TVL on DeFi applications on Avalanche and all these kind of things. So where do you stand now? I think the mainnet went live sometime last year, right? Late last year. Yeah. When did you, so how was that year for you? Since the launch, are you happy where you guys are right now? And what is your current main focus in terms of like industries that you're focusing on?
Great question. Am I happy? No. Every day when I'm not number one, I'm not happy. So our goal is to be the premier blockchain platform. And I think we have a whole lot of technical ideas that are revolutionary. And I think it's going to take some time for the world to digest them, to understand why you might need subnets, for example. I think with your Cosmos background, you realize that this is not a common thing, or there are only 3 chains that even talk about the need to have subnets or zones or whatever, what have you, parachains, whatever you might want to call them. But that idea is pretty powerful, and we haven't really seen it taken advantage of yet. So as you mentioned, we're a young chain. Relatively speaking, we've only been around for what, 1 year. Solana is older than us. Ethereum is much older than us. So in that 1 year, we accomplished a hell of a lot. We're now one of the top 12 chains. I'm really proud of that. We have a vibrant community, really proud of the community. That's, I think, one of my biggest sources of pride. And it's really exciting. We never resorted to any of the funny things that other people do to promote their chain. And despite that, we have had excellent organic growth. Really happy about that. But there's so much more to do. So we came into this space wanting to expand our horizons as a space. I want to expand crypto. I want to bring in new value. We invented some new asset types. And so we're about to see them come to fruition. We invented something called ILOs. The very first one is going to be going out in the next month or so. Thrilled about that. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we're doing. We're advancing when we did advance the science of blockchains. We're also advancing dApps. We have new DEXs coming out. So, there's so much more that's in the pipeline. At times, actually, to be honest, there's just too much in the back office that I haven't released compared to what we have released. And the things we have released have been, essentially just every single thing has been industry leading. Look at our bridge. We have the most trustless bridge with the best user experience. It's cheaper now to move your funds from Ethereum to Avalanche, perform your action there and move them back to Ethereum than to do them on Ethereum, because the bridge is so cheap to use, and it's a trustless bridge. So in any case, so I can go on like this. I'm really proud of where we are, but there's so much more to do. So much more to do.
Yeah, I love your passion, man. It's really, really amazing to hear you talk about these things. And yeah, I played around with the bridge also. Actually, when it came out, I think already like a couple of months ago, pretty easy and seamless. And I love the branding also. I think the user experience, like all that is kind of like part to it, right? MetaMask, I don't know if they have made any innovations in the past, but it's always the same kind of like interface. We can't really do much. But I think other ecosystems are kind of like a few steps ahead when it comes to also the design, the architecture, obviously, and also like the speed and the settlement and the cost, like you said. I mean, that's crazy to think about it. But yeah, I mean, some people literally pay hundreds of dollars just to swap tokens or
swap. I know you want to do a swap on Uniswap. It will cost you.
Yeah.
I think Vinny was posting this morning that he wanted to do a swap. It cost him $12,000. So
that's wild. That's wild.
It's wild.
But yeah, so let's talk a little bit. Like I said earlier to you before this call, I'm mostly covering Cosmos here on this channel, but I'm also here and there, up to date with other ecosystems. Sometimes I talk about Algorand, about Hedera, also Avalanche. So can you talk a little bit from an architectural standpoint? There was also this podcast where you were on, I think, 1.5 years ago with Billy Rennekamp, Zaki Manian, and the Cosmos folks. Can you talk from an architectural standpoint how Avalanche aims to kind of like also be an interoperable platform in the same time?
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about that. And I want to sort of dissect that idea and sort of peel it apart a little bit. Because, here's, I think, how this whole thing played out. About 3 years ago, everybody realized that interoperability was going to be a big deal, right? I think we can see that. And if you believe in, if you believe in a multi-chain universe going forward, then you have to understand how interoperability is going to work. And so you ended up getting these chains and you end up getting these projects talking incessantly about interoperability. So that's fine. And especially Ethereum community loves to talk about things, probably to the detriment of doing anything about them. But so out of that discussion came out Polkadot. And so I think I'll caricaturize it a little bit, I'll simplify it. But I want to separate in-protocol interoperability from exogenous interoperability. What do I mean by that? So here's my glib summary. So Polkadot plays it talks a big game about how it's going to be interoperable. But what you have to do to be interoperable with Polkadot is you have to be Polkadot. You have to run their protocol. So that's not interoperability. I mean, you got to do that, right? You got to have parachains talk to parachains. You got to have something in line for that. That's pretty important. So that's what one would call in protocol, what I would call in protocol interoperability. And Cosmos has IBC that plays a similar role. We have something that is going to play a similar role. But when other people hear it, they don't think about, when they hear interoperability, they think, oh, they interoperate with Bitcoin, with Ethereum, and none of these protocols do that. So they're kind of like mistargeting the audience onto something. They're acting like, hey, I'm going to give you this, and then they like take a hard left turn and give them something else. So in my view, as we move forward, the key to interoperability between disparate protocols are going to be bridges. If you want to have one foot on this continent and another foot on another continent, well, then those are different continents. They speak a different language, right? In your left foot, you're sending messages according to the Cosmos protocol running PBFT Tendermint. On the other foot, you're sending messages according to whatever Ethereum is doing. And those are disparate. They're very different. So bridges are the future. And when it comes to bridges, we have to have a completely different framework. We don't talk about interoperability protocols. We should talk about bridge construction. And on that front, I'm really proud of the Ethereum Avalanche bridge, and I cannot wait to expand it. So again, like I'll make some predictions. I think scientists are worthless unless they stick their neck out and make some predictions, right? I need to be able to make some falsifiable statements. And I made a whole bunch of them, and I'm proud of my record. I'll call out this one. Next year is going to be a war of bridges. Whoever builds the best one is going to be the one that's farthest ahead. And I'm super proud of the technology we have, because it operates, using SGX, using these hardware security features that makes the operator not a custodian of the funds. And that's an amazing situation to be in. So, and it allows all of the funds to be super cheap. And again, just an amazing situation because the user experience is so pleasant and elegant. So that's my 2 cents on interoperability. It's very different from what you'll hear from other people. I'm happy to talk about in-protocol interoperability as well.
No, I love that. And I also love that you kind of like compare to other ecosystems, how they're handling it. Obviously on Cosmos, there is IBC, which is kind of like predominantly right now for kind of like Cosmos-based chains, but it's also going to expand that concept and to kind of like also be compatible with other chains. The Gravity Bridge is also coming, which then enables EVM compatibility. I also heard you talk about Ethermint with the guys, like, I don't know, years ago. Like you're way ahead of the game here, obviously. That's really cool. But so is IBC something that could be implemented on Avalanche? Is that something that you are considering, or is that right now not really on your map?
Oh, no, it's definitely something that I've thought quite a bit about. Cosmos happens to be, there are 2 things about Cosmos. One, the protocol implementation is very elegantly done. I really like the code structure. So those of you who are listening, who have looked at the code, you know what I'm talking about. It's nicely done. Kudos to the people who did it. The second thing I love about Cosmos has always been the people behind it. So Zaki is a close friend. Tony Arcieri is a close friend. Jay, of course, is a close friend. And in fact, Jay is a Cornell student. Before he did Cosmos, I actually talked to him about what kind of a protocol he should pick. So this is something I've thought quite a bit about. And I've had many conversations with Tony and Zaki about IBC. And so we would be delighted to have Avalanche nodes support IBC, for example. Then we could have Cosmos to Avalanche bridges in a very seamless fashion. So it's definitely something that we've thought about. It's definitely something that we've talked to external parties about. And it's a matter of prioritization. So I don't know when, I don't like making these forward-looking statements when it comes to these kinds of things. So I'm not going to say anything about when, but it's definitely something that's been on our radar.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope that I can also somehow contribute to this. As a content creator, obviously, the crypto YouTube space is full of price predictions and this and that. But I think I want to also help, you know, as I'm purely from the community in Cosmos, like I'm not part of any team or something, but I just think it makes sense, you know, and I also think it makes sense to connect to other ecosystems like Avalanche that are gaining traction, have real product market fit, have real users and real value locked, right? That's amazing. So I think why not kind of like help bring this together, and then we have a bigger impact in the end of the day, right? So I think that is something that I would love to, I don't know, somehow contribute and help to push this. Would love to see that. And I know Jay also.
Me too. But let me say this: it's always best to sort of structure this in incremental steps. I would say that the first thing we should do is have a bridge. Cosmos to Avalanche bridge would be a good idea, and that's probably an easier technical lift than IBC. So, but you know, whatever makes sense. So let me think about this some more. We have, I would say, one of the best relations with the Cosmos team. I respect them very much. We like them very much, also at the personal level. So, so it's not just IBC, but also bridging that can help us here in the short term.
Yeah, and I think you guys also kind of like reshaped the term GM on Twitter to GB, right? For what is it? Good bridging.
Yes, GB, good bridging. GMGB, good morning, good bridging. And a lot of value has been flowing over that bridge. We're at $9 billion on Avalanche and TVL right now. And daily flows on the bridge are, I don't even know what they are, but many hundreds of millions are flowing across the bridge. So really proud of what we've done there.
That's amazing. And this value comes from different use cases, different products built on Avalanche, right? So can you maybe, I don't know, talk a little bit about some of your favorite dApps that are in the ecosystem, DeFi, NFT, no matter what?
Sure. Let's see. We have Pangolin, the granddaddy of them all. One of the first things that started the whole dApp thing on Avalanche. And Pangolin is a Uniswap clone, and it does what Uniswap does, allows you to trade anything for anything else. And one of the main differences between Uniswap and Pangolin is that Pangolin is completely community owned. There is no centralized team. The tokens, the governance tokens did not go to anybody who worked on the code. My team worked on the code, and we put the code out. We didn't deploy it. We didn't create an allocation of tokens for the team or anything of the kind. We did not benefit financially from Pangolin at all. It's just entirely community owned. So if you believe in true decentralization, well, that's an app, that's a dApp, that's fully decentralized. We have Trader Joe, which is another AMM DEX like Pangolin, but it's based on a different infrastructure, and it supports a hell of a lot of things. It supports single token staking. It supports very cheap swaps. I mean, it's just wonderful to use. That's two. Number three, Benki. I love Benki. It's a lending platform, and it's got a lot of TVL and a very, very successful team doing really well on top of Avalanche. Number four is Aave. Aave is on top of Avalanche. We're the number 2 chain for them, and it's it's just really nice to see their TVL growth on top of us. And as I said, if you're going to do lending activities, it makes sense to do it on Aave on Avalanche, and then take your tokens to Ethereum if you need to go interact with something on Ethereum, than to try to do it on Ethereum because it's cheaper. And also, when there are big price movements and it's liquidation time, chains with high capacity are far better than chains with low capacity, where the fees go skyrocketing, people start getting liquidated, etc. That's less likely to happen when you have 100x or more times the capacity on chain. Let's see, what else do we have? We have Curve. We have these blue chips of the dApp world on top of us. We have Sushi on top of us, and I can go on like this. We have a huge number of NFTs. Some of them are derivative. We've got AVAX apes, kind of like, whatever, AVAX punks, kind of like Cryptopunks. But some of them are brand new, and I'm really proud of them. I really like them. I love some of the artwork. I've purchased some NFTs. I'm not going to name names. And we've got some artists, like brand new world acclaimed artists, coming onto our platform So Jason Pearson is one of them that's coming on board. He did a big mural of Kanye West recently. He's doing a mural for Avalanche, and he's going to be opening up an NFT store on top of Avalanche. We've got some artists from that I happen to love. Anyway, I can go on like this. There are some unique NFTs, and there are many other use cases as well that are being built up on top of this. Oh, I should mention one last thing. This is very important. We also have some revolutionary DEXs coming out. So these are unlike the other DEXs you might see on a low capacity chain like Ethereum. You can't really do much on chain, but you can on Avalanche. So I'm really excited about what we can do, and I can't wait to show the world what DEXs can do for them. In fact, when I say the world, it's not crypto. I want to show the Wall Street guys. It's just like, you guys look down on us, but we are ahead of you in tech. We can guarantee that malfeasance will not happen because of our smart contract abilities. And we've got something that's better than the totality of what you've got.
Before I try to get more alpha out of you, this Curve and Aave migration was part of the Avalanche Rush, correct? Can you, like, very briefly, because we're almost at the hour mark, but very briefly, what is the current plans for the future with Avalanche Rush? Do we have more products that are migrating, or where do we stand right now?
Yeah, good questions. So we ended up setting aside some number of tokens for the Rush program. The Rush program is an incentive program. So essentially, what we do is we decided to give people some free gifts, some free money for using the Avalanche chain. What do we want? We want everybody to try and use Avalanche. What are we betting on? We're betting that once you experiment with a super fast finality network like Avalanche, you won't be able to go back. So in the age of modems, you give somebody an ADSL line, or you give somebody a fiber line, they will never be able to go back to their modem. That's my bet. And I was willing to bet a very large amount, about $180 million on this. And so the funny thing, of course, is the token price went up quite a bit after this. So the amount of money we're giving out through the Rush program went through the roof. So we're giving out a very large amount of money. And the goal is to have everybody play with Avalanche, the network, and see how great it is. And are other people coming on board? Absolutely. Are we talking to all the blue chips in DeFi? Absolutely. And do we have a very full schedule of new introductions of DeFi protocols onto Avalanche? Absolutely. So I'm really thrilled about what's to come. And the dollar amount that's being given out in incentives is staggeringly large. So come by, provide liquidity, get some rewards. Come by, maybe use a lending platform, get some rewards for borrowing money. And whatever you might want to do, we are giving incentives out for it. It's a great way to play with this new world of finance.
Awesome, yeah. And before I let you go, we need some, Emin, we need some alpha leaks. We need some, I don't know, is there a giant airdrop coming up? You already leaked a little bit about the revolutionary DEX that is coming up. What is coming? Tell us.
What is coming? Well, in the very short term, ILOs are coming. ILOs are initial litigation offerings. So especially in the US, justice often sides with the rich. And you can have a very rightful case, and you can run out of money to defend it. And so we plan to tokenize this process, and we want to allow everybody to put their money behind causes that they care about. If there's an aggrieved person who can't get their day heard in court, well then with ILOs they can. This is a new asset class we invented. Really, really excited about it. We did all of the grunt work for it. The regulatory grunt work is substantial, and getting all set up for this is substantial effort. And I cannot wait to see this come to fruition. So that's one. I'll give you another alpha leak if you want. These DEXs are really cool. Let me put this in context. So, just as long as I've known myself, Bitcoin folks, crypto folks, go to the regulators and they say, we'd like to have an ETF. And then the regulators go, no. Okay, they say no, no matter what. Like every 3 months, there is like it's like you take the same thing, you put different makeup on it, and you take it to the regulators, and they say no, not good enough. Why the heck are these people saying no, not good enough? They say your markets are manipulated. They're not trustworthy, and they are not wrong. They're not wrong. I think everybody who's traded on a crypto platform knows the trepidation with which they trade. You can never trust what's happening behind the scenes on a crypto platform, on a crypto exchange, a centralized crypto exchange. But DEXs change this game, or they have the potential to change this game. Now, if you go use Uniswap, it's actually not that much better. There is going to be a miner that jumps ahead of you. You will be front run. You use a slow network, they have 14 and a half seconds to front run you. That's an eternity. So then what's the alternative? Well, there are alternatives here that completely change the game. So on Wall Street, they rely on trust, and they enforce the trustworthiness by having post-facto audits. Every now and then, regulators go into an exchange and they look at the records, they try to discover malfeasance. It's a very difficult game. Regardless, they manage to catch all sorts of things every 6 months, and there's a massive scandal every decade or so. So with DEXs, we have the potential, which we haven't realized yet. Nobody has figured this out yet, but we have the potential to build exchanges that are completely trustworthy, that obviate this kind of analysis and inspection, because they build the compliance rules into the fabric of the exchange. You can be guaranteed not to be front run. You can be guaranteed full privacy. You can be guaranteed not to be subject to stop loss hunting, which is when people come after you and try to make you liquidate. So it's possible to build fantastic new pieces of kit, fantastic new technology that guarantees retail against malfeasance by richer, better positioned actors. So I can't wait to unveil this. There's a lot coming on top of Avalanche. It's going to be a brand new world. Every single thing that we try to make sure that it's the best of its class. This is true for our consensus protocol. It's true for our core system. It's also true for our bridge. And now we're working up the stack, looking at exchanges next. And I'm really thrilled about what's to come there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think 2021 has also been the year where institutions has shown interest in crypto and want to get involved beyond just buying, right? And all these protocols, Aave, they also launched kind of like institutional grade applications for them to kind of like ease you on board. So yeah, that's some good alpha here. Thanks for sharing this. As we wrap things up, I think there's one final question. Usually I put out some tweets and let the community ask questions as well. I think most of them have been answered throughout this amazing conversation. The last one, I think it's a good way to end this, is from one community member asking, ask Emin how he sees Avalanche participating in the growth of cross-chain DeFi, and how soon can we see some sort of AVAX ATOM synergy?
That's a great question. I think we already touched upon this. I think the easiest way that we can facilitate cross-chain DeFi is through bridges. So that's, I think, a lot easier than IBC compatibility or anything else. So that's the cross-chain bridges are not hard to build, and adapting our technology to support Cosmos is something that's eminently doable. So I think this is just a matter of sequencing for us and slotting this into our structure. As I said, I'm very close to Zaki and Tony and other people in the Cosmos community, and quite fond of the technology within Cosmos. And I'd be thrilled to support this. It's just a matter of resourcing and timing. So count on me doing something there. I'm excited. And if any of the Cosmos people are excited about Avalanche, I invite them to check out our technology. It's really cool. And I think, this is going to be a big, long game. Our common enemy is Wall Street, right outside my window, by the way. I'm in New York City. I'm looking out at Manhattan over there, like FIDA is over there. And the pie is so huge that it's ridiculous to get caught up in these battles or whatever else. And so the cross-chain world is going to be amazing. It's going to be essential to be able to move assets, valuable things from one chain to the next. And as I said, my vision is one of bridging, and next year is going to be a game of bridges. And we have some really cool base technology, and I cannot wait to expand it to support Atom. Awesome. Not just Atom, but things built on top of Atom.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the cosmonauts will love this. Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time here. We'll leave all the links obviously under this video so people can follow up and get involved and get started also with Avalanche and Avalanche DeFi and Avalanche NFTs. There's so much to explore and play around with, and fully agree. There's too much tribalism, which only costs us time and doesn't really help anything. People like the hairstyle of Charles Hoskinson more than Vitalik. So they're like, oh, Vitalik is a scammer because I don't like his hair. That's pointless. I think we're all still in the same boat, like you're saying, trying to kind of like fight the traditional financial guys, and maybe even not fight them, but like onboard them. I mean, they know that, you know, if the system is better, they better join. Otherwise they get left behind.
It's inescapable, and I'm seeing the very early signs of that movement. So they're coming in droves. Everybody's excited. You know, just think about it. You suppose you're at Citadel, and what are you going to do? You're going to trade Facebook stock? How boring is that? It's just so mind-numbingly boring. And look at what's happening on top of Avalanche. Look at what's happening on top of Cosmos or Ethereum. Just so much more fun. And I don't know if you know this, but the CEO of Citadel had to ban discussion of cryptocurrencies by his employees. So that whole area is coming over to us, to crypto overall, to all of us. It's going to be a fantastic future. And
those that want to ignore it, they're just going to get left behind. So it is what it is. But I think we're in the right train here. I'm really excited for everything that also you personally do. Also big follower of you on Twitter. So yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. This is really big. And yeah, we'll hopefully keep in touch and hopefully make this IBC integration happening.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for a lively conversation. I cannot wait to see what will come of this collaboration.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Take care.